Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am the Inconsequential Runner, and let's talk about wearing our watches, our GPS, our GPS watches, our gadgets to keep track of everything that's going on. Now you know that there's times to wear the watch, and you would have seen in other videos people advocate there's times that you don't wear the watch. The only trick with not wearing the watch is you want the data for the run. So that intermediary step is not looking at the watch as often as you do. I'm kind of okay with that too, looking at the watch even on an easy run, because you might be checking on something like your heart rate. You want to keep that low. So there'll be one metric generally in every run you want to keep your eye on. But what I will say and something I became really conscious of in a forest run I did last weekend. It was just over a 2-hour run, and I found I was looking at my watch all the time for no reason. Like, I'd glance at my watch, not take any data in. It almost became an unintentional glance. And then I'd think, well, what did I see on the watch? And then I'd glance again because I didn't take any of the data in. And so much of it doesn't matter. Forest run with a lot of hills, it's about enjoying the run. So average speed, even distance, doesn't matter. The only metric that really matters is time. And because it was an easy run, keeping my heart rate relatively low. But I know how to keep my heart rate low, just run slow. So anyway, where am I going with all of this? Obviously, when you're glancing at your watch and it becomes almost like an involuntary action, and you're doing it while you're a forest or an off-road run, especially in rocky terrain, there's a bit of a hazard with that, because you really need to keep your eyes on the trail to make sure you don't trip on anything. So where do you go? What do? Do you put a little reminder on the watch to stop you looking at it, which might be a bit of just duct tape or some tape across the top of it? So when you see the tape, you're like, oh, okay, that's my reminder to stop looking at the watch. I don't know what it is. If you have any tips, put them below. But what I decided to do in my trail run, I keep wanting to say trail run, was because I was doing a circuit that I usually do, there are a number of points where I thought, don't look at my watch until I get to that point. So I broke that 2-hour run into quarters. So there was 4 points I was going to look at the watch just to see how I was tracking. I didn't want to speed up, didn't want to slow down. It's not about that, but just making sure that I was going to run about 2 hours, and if I had to add a little bit more on, or take a little bit off, then I could make that determination closer to the end of the run. But what I noticed after I thought, hey, these are the 4 points I'm going to look at my watch, I just kept glancing at it all the time. Took away from the enjoyment of the run. So that's why I wanted to share this with you. Come up with your own rules in terms of how often you look at the watch, and try and get it out of the game, especially if it's making your runs feel really clinical and sterile and just taking away the fun from your run. Any tips, any thoughts, throw them below, but really start to think about what is the usefulness of your watch during the run, and use it only for that purpose and only when you need it. Okay, that's it. Oh no, hold on. Just before we go, and especially when racing, when we're in a race, and it might be a 10K, and what we do is we set up and I've got a 10K race tomorrow, Honest 10. If you live in Wellington, come along to it. Okay, anyway. Sundays, check them out in Wellington. But where I'm going with this is, how often do we think, okay, this is the time I want to run that 10K race in? And then we take the 10Ks, the 10 kilometers, or if you're in the States, 6 miles, and you work out even splits, and you want to see how you're tracking on the even splits. But when you run a 10-kilometer race or a half marathon or a marathon, you ebb and flow. There's times where you feel really good, and there's times where you don't feel so good. And the better the runner you become, those ebbs and flows are less, and the more predictable, and you understand your body and where you're at and what's going on. But how often are we just a couple of seconds, maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15 under our target time, and then we push a little bit harder when our body's in a condition where we shouldn't be pushing? We can give away that time, knowing that in 2 or 3 kilometers, we might feel completely different. So that's another thing I think we need to be conscious of with our watches, and following a really regimented per kilometer time split, because we'll be pushing and pulling our bodies in a way that might not be right for our bodies at that point in the race. Who knows, right? Okay, just something to think about. If you have any tips or any thoughts, let me know. But as I said, that occurred to me when I was out running in the forest, and I found myself just involuntary, just looking at my watch all the time and not even taking any data in from it. I'd look at it and you asked me 2 seconds later what I saw, and I wouldn't be able to tell you. Just an involuntary sort of action. Anyway, any thoughts, pop them below. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience to get into the end of this. Take care. Enjoy your running. Run. Just run.